this video, we're going to be replacing the pads on a BMW R1100 RS. They're using the Brembo calipers, which are a pretty standard caliper on the BMW motorcycle, so this is applicable to a lot of different models. First, we have to locate the calipers, which is quite easy on a motorcycle. And as you can see here, we have a easy access, and we're going to be working on the two bolts on the bottom of the caliper. The ones on the top, well, unless you're really adventuresome, we don't want to be taking those out because that takes apart the caliper. That's just a bit too much for me on any one day. So we take off the two bottom bolts. Once we have those two bottom bolts off, what we're going to do is we're going to squeeze or push the caliper in against the rotor on either side. This is pushing the pistons in, which is going to allow us to pull the caliper straight up, as you can see here. Some people put tape on the rim to keep from banging the rim when they get the caliper out, but you should have enough room to clear it. Once we have the caliper off, make sure you don't twist the brake hose a whole lot. And you're going to take the cover off the caliper. That's the black piece of plastic. And once we have the piece of plastic off, the three items we are going to be working with are located right here. And they are two identical pins, a spring, and a short pin. Now the short pin has to become your best friend because it can disappear pretty quick because it's not attached to anything. Here are the brakes I used. These are EBC brakes. They were about 30 bucks online, about half the price of the BMW brakes. Now here's that pin once again. And like I said, it's not attached to anything. It's held in by the tension of the spring. The spring is held by the two longer pins. So first, what we're going to do is we're going to start tapping out the long pins, and we start with the side that is not holding the spring captive. You can see here on the top, you can see how the spring curls around the pin. Well, we start with the pin that's opposite that, and we tap, and then we start working on the other one, and just slowly start tapping the pins out, but just make sure you take the one out that has the spring, that doesn't hold the spring captive. Make sure you take that one out first. Now here we can see with the one pin out, you can see the middle pin is now missing and the spring is attached to the top pin. All pins are now out, and we have access to the pads. The pads here are worn down to an embarrassing level. Once we take the pads out, we're going to push the pistons in. Now here's a warning, guys and gals, be careful with brake fluid. Very, very careful with brake fluid, because it can peel the paint off your motorcycle in a heartbeat. And the reason we're pushing the pistons in and we're worried about brake fluid is because we're going to have larger pads in, and we have to have room for the pads. And when we push the pistons in, if you have too much brake fluid in your system, it's going to bubble out over the reservoir. So you may have to remove some of the fluid in the reservoir. And you can do this with a dollar store turkey baster. Remove some of the fluid, push the pistons in. As you can see here, these are the pistons being pushed in. If they're really tough to push in, you can actually lay a tire iron across, put one of the old brake pads in, lay a tire iron across and push. And here's how the new pads slip in. That's that simple. And the reassembly is exactly the same as the disassembly. So just give yourself a little bit of time after you put it in to make sure that the brakes get broken in slowly. There's plenty online about how to break in brakes, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Enjoy the ride.